What's up, San Diego? Good to be back on the airwaves with all of you here on a Sunday morning as we are now with a new time slot on the Braden Surprenant Show. We are going to be here each and every Sunday morning from 9 to 11 on 97.3 The Fan. Good to be with all of you yet again. Hopefully you guys had a great Christmas break. That is the quickest, and I mean the quickest radio turnover I have ever done in my entire life. The quickest. From Let's Talk Hookup to the Braden Surprenant Show, 45 seconds. Insane. That is insane. That's an insane turnaround. But local programming on the weekend, so Let's Talk Hookup is on the airwaves with us here on 97.3 The Fan on Saturdays and now on Sundays as well. And I will now be from 9 to 11, which is great. I love being on from 9 to 11. A little bit better. I got to sleep in a little bit extra on a Sunday. And, you know, when you work in sports and you got a lot of events that you got to do on the weekends, whether it be with USD for me or coaching high school football, which is obviously not a thing during in January, and other things that I have to do, it's nice to have an extra hour of sleep, if you will. So from that perspective, I don't mind starting at 9 o'clock in the morning. I think it's a lot better for you guys as well out there that listen to the show. Because usually, like last year when we started at 8, it felt like 8, everybody was still kind of like waking up. And then I was starting to get into it with a lot of fans being able to jump in on the YouTube chat and everything like that around 9 o'clock anyway. So I'm glad that I get to be on this new time slot with all of you. It's going to be a great time. There are some dates obviously coming up that are going to be a little different just because we got some NFL programming that we have to do during the playoffs. So we'll talk some NFL football here on the show. It's Week 18 of the National Football League. We're going to talk some college football as well with the college football playoff and dive into some Padres things. But in the next couple of weeks, I think this is really the only time slot I got until I think maybe the Pro Bowl. There might be one other day in there where we don't have to do NFL football pregame shows. So we'll play it by ear, but the new time slot now is 9 to 11 on Sunday mornings, and I will be here almost the entire year from 9 to 11 with the exception of a couple of conflicts, obviously, with some previous things that we are entitled to take. With contracts, everything like that, especially with the Westwood One contract with the NFL. So that will knock me off for a couple of different weeks. But good to be back with all of you. If you want to join the show, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. First real local show from our usual season back in 2025. Hopefully all of you guys had a great winter break and a good holiday break. As we took one here on the radio station. Kind of waiting for the Padres to do some things, but at this point, you know, going into the offseason, I thought the beginning was kind of going to be telling on whether or not the Padres were going to do a lot, and then, or whether or not they were going to wait to potentially make some moves or do anything of that nature. And over break, when they're going to break, I didn't really think they were going to go out there and do anything spectacular, right? Or go out there and do anything that's, you know, relatively too crazy when it comes to signing free agents and making too many trades. I think a lot of it has to do with what is happening with Roki Sasaki. And that's kind of where we're going to start the show today, just kind of a recap of what the Padres did so far in the offseason. That is sign Tyler Wade. That is all they've really done. They show the list of payroll and what the lowest amount of money the teams have spent. And I don't think the Marlins have spent $1 yet. Padres are in the bottom 5 spending $900,000. And I don't think they need to necessarily be at the top end list every offseason. I think it's very discouraging for a lot of fans. And here's what I understand. I understand both sides of this argument. From the standpoint for the Padres of positive side, and we hear Annie talk about this all the time. Well, they're still going to be a really good team. Yes, they are. On paper, going into next year, what they're coming back with, assuming they don't make any, trades. But if they do make some trades, I think a little bit of it's going to be, factored in with, if they trade Dylan Cease, it's probably because they got Roki Sasaki. I mean, something like a move like that, or they are using some of their assets to fill out part of the roster that might be a weakness to them. But overall, when you look at this roster that the Padres have, I mean, it's one of the better rosters in Major League Baseball. It is. And by not even doing anything, they're still going to be a team that is a contender for the postseason. And I honestly think they are a postseason team as constructed. Even with losing Profar, and we don't know about whether or not the Padres are going to bring him back or not. He's still a free agent. Even with, potentially not not having Joe Musgrove for the majority of the 2025 season coming up, he's going to miss almost all of it. I mean, I know there's this hope that he might come back for the postseason, and maybe he does, and that would be great. But even with some of the losses to that roster, just keeping the core group of guys that you have is going to set you up for success every single year. It just is. And that's why they spent the money on these players. I mean, any year that you're going to have Manny Machado and Fernando Tatis Jr. on your team, you're going to have a chance. I mean, the lineup's still really good. And hopefully Xander Bogaerts can start to play to the level that he was at in Boston. I don't think he's ever going to get to that peak level that he was at in Boston. I hope he does. I just don't think he will. But if he plays up to half of what he was as a player and the 3/4 of it in Boston, the Padres will be in good shape with Machado and Bogaerts and Tatis. And then you mix in, Yu Darvish is a veteran pitcher on the mound. He takes care of himself. He takes care of his body. I know he missed some time last year for some personal reasons, but you got Yu Darvish part of the rotation. You still have Dylan Cease and Michael King as of right now. If you add Roki Sasaki, those are really good pieces right there. Now, whether or not the Padres can add Roki Sasaki and keep a Dylan Cease or a Michael King, those are all questions that need to be answered in the next couple of weeks or so. But just as constructed, and I know I've used this terminology a lot when you're remodeling a room, and you might not like the way it looks right now as it's still going through the process. You got to let it be a finished product before you can really judge what that room looks like. And when you're looking at it right now, I think it's slightly better than last year at this time. I do think it's slightly better. I mean, last year at this time, it was relatively the same thing, right? Not a lot of moves being made, right? They didn't have Dylan Cease at this time last year. They didn't have Luis Arraez at this time last year. You never know where trades can come about. And the Padres can still be able to add pieces as we get to spring training. But I think as of right now, the main focus is probably on Roki Sasaki and trying to win that sweepstakes. And then after that, you start looking into where can we make some deals? Where can we sign some guys that, are not getting what they thought they were going to get as other teams have made all their moves and spent their money? Where can we find a deal here and there so we don't have to spend as much? And I think the Padres are in that situation. The other thing the Padres are dealing with, and I think they have kind of found a solution now, obviously, is who is going to be the acting, front office man, right? Because the Padres, and what happened last year with the passing of Peter Seidler, and then having the board, right, and everybody that's part of the Padres organization that's in the ownership group, you need a new chairman. You need somebody that's going to be the head figure, the one that talks to Major League Baseball, the one that's part of the meetings, everything like that. And even though the ownership groups have multiple people and have different percentages in ownership stake at the team, you still need that one person to run relatively the organization from a standpoint of he's the guy that goes to the MLB meetings. He's the one that's, participates in the deal. He's the spokesperson of the organization. And so they have to elect, or they have to decide, and this is in layman's terms, trying to spell it out for you as simply as I could, who is going to be that figure. And for a long time, it was Peter Seidler. With his passing, not a lot of people wanted to do that, take over the spot for Peter, and so they appointed Eric Katsenda, who was not part of the ownership group, but represented Peter as part of this deal and as the interim chairman of the Padres organization, trying to figure out when or what the Padres are going to do, or should I say the Seidler family was going to do with the San Diego Padres. And right before we went to break for the holidays, the Padres announced that, or that John Seidler was going to be the new designated control executive of the San Diego Padres, succeeding his late brother, Peter Seidler. John will take over the role before the 2025 season begins. So you really have to establish that before you could really get super in-depth on what exactly the Padres are going to do and what their ownership's going to do in terms of spending money and in terms of, is it going to be business as usual for the Padres? So once that has kind of been figured out, and it's starting to be, it's obviously figured out now with John Seidler, now you got to figure out how much money the Padres are going to have to spend, what they're willing to spend. We talked about it on this show the last time I did this show, which was a couple of weeks ago. And we played some of the clips from Annie and Elston. That was the Thursday before that show, where Annie really described everything great on how this process works and how the money is put forth for the Padres to spend when they want to go a little bit extra. Again, it wasn't Peter Seidler putting the money forward. It was him asking the rest of the, relatively the ownership group, can they put more money and do a capital call to pay for more players? Hey, we really want to get Xander Bogaerts on this team. We think he could be an asset for us. We need a little bit extra from everybody. You throw in a little bit extra, you get a capital call, and then all of a sudden you can spend a little bit more over where you're at. But the Padres being in a little bit of debt last year, trying to get in good terms with Major League Baseball, picking a new control executive of the Padres. I mean, there's a lot of those things that need to be worked out before they can then do another one of those capital calls if they decide to do so. And again, a lot of teams do these capital calls in order to pay or maybe up their payroll a little bit or maybe, upgrade some other parts of the organization. But they don't happen every single year. And the Padres had one not too long ago. And all of those owners that put money and stake in want to get some of their money back and see the return on their investment. With a playoff push, maybe that pushes it a little bit. But until we start to know John Seidler as the new designated control executive of the Padres, it's hard to guess of whether or not what direction the Padres are going to go in terms of overall spending and in terms of how much money or in terms of like what type of organization are they going to be? Are they going to go back to being a stereotypical small market org that is used to dealing with budgetary and being at the bottom of the payroll scale in Major League Baseball? Is it going to be one of those teams that the Padres have been where they're overspending, they're in the top 10 in payroll? Or is it going to be somewhere in the middle? That's the question that not a lot of Padres fans have the answer to. Not a lot of people in the organization have the answer to, at least the ones that are not part of those conversations. We don't have the answers to that here in the media, but it's something that's going to just kind of play out a little bit over the next couple of months, and it might even take a year. But when you look at the Padres as a roster right now, I think of the big piece for the Padres in this offseason that can make it a big success is if they get Roki Sasaki. If they can get Roki Sasaki, they're in really good shape. If they can't, now all of a sudden you got to move a lot of different things around again to try to still compete with some of the competition in the National League West. I mean, we talk about the Dodgers all the time, and the Dodgers have set the precedent of being the top echelon team. They could do a lot of things that nobody else can do. And I don't know why the media can say that everybody could do what they do. They can't do what they do. Not everybody can do what the Dodgers do. They play by different rules. They have different resources. But you're not really worried about them anymore. You have to beat them in a 5 games. It's going back to the whole, you just got to beat them in a 5-game series. I mean, trying to win the division is going to be almost utterly impossible unless a lot of things go your way and a lot of things do not go the Dodgers' way. But the Diamondbacks got better. They got Corbin Burns over the offseason, or at least during the break. And their rotation's looking pretty good. I'm not really convinced their lineup is there with the Padres. I still think the Padres have probably the second best lineup, top to bottom, in the National League West. Definitely one of the top 5 lineups in the National League. But Diamondbacks got better signing Corbin Burns. Trying to see those other teams in Major League Baseball, especially in the National League. Mets got better in signing Juan Soto. Did they give him a lot of money? Yeah. Did they give him maybe too much money? Probably. They got better. Phillies and Braves are still really good. So these are some of the teams that you're going to have to compete with. And right now, I think the Padres have a playoff caliber roster. Just got to be able to add a little bit on the margins and see what you got. Again, you don't need to spend the most money in order to win a World Series, but it does give you a big advantage in order to do so. New time, or new year, new time for the Braden Surprenant Show. We're going to be here each and every Sunday morning from 9 to 11 now. Let's Talk Hookup is the new show, or returning show. Used to be on the airwaves here at 97.3 not too long ago. They are back on the weekends. They are on from 7 to 8 on Saturdays and now on from 7 to 9 on Sundays, leading into the Braden Surprenant Show from 9 to 11. So that will be our new time slot for the Braden Surprenant Show. We're just getting started today. We're going to get back into it with some NFL talk. We'll talk more Padres later on. If you want to join the show today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Also, you can leave us a voice message if you're listening on the Odyssey app, which we got some statistics back. There's a lot of younger people like listen on the Odyssey app. I saw it with a lot of the Gen Z. I guess is my generation. I'm one of those tweeners born in 95 where I could be a millennial or a Gen Z. I don't really like associating myself with either with some of the stereotypes. But that being said, a lot of Gen Zs listen to the show on the Odyssey app. So if you got the Odyssey app and you're listening on that right now, you want to leave a voice message, you can join the show doing that as well. Want to hear from all of you around San Diego and around the country. I already know Mitch in New Jersey is probably waiting to jump online too. We'll get his phone calls and more when we come back. Braden Surprenant Show, live and local, each and every Sunday morning from 9 to 11 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Braden Surprenant Show live and local each every Sunday morning. What's up, San Diego? Hopefully all of you guys are doing well after the holiday break. For anybody that hasn't already gone into work after the new year, it's weird being on a Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm not a fan of that. I know it happens every, how many years with the calendar, but a Tuesday, Wednesday. I mean, are holidays in the middle of the week like the worst time to have a holiday? Like, I'm talking like every holiday. Like the national holidays, like you get off. Like, what's like the worst day for the 4th of July? A Tuesday? Is that like the worst day? I guess it can't be like the worst. I mean, you could take Monday off and then you're, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. It's like a 4-day deal. Like, what's the worst day for a holiday? It's got to be Tuesday, Wednesday. Because if you have a holiday on like a Thursday, you can take Friday off and then you have a full weekend. I mean, the Tuesday, Wednesday turnaround's got to be the worst. And we got that for Christmas and we got that for New Year. Like, how many people worked last week? I mean, we were off as a station, so that was what we did. But, yeah, Sundays aren't very good either. Like a holiday on a Sunday. But I'm talking like holidays you get off, though. Like, not like a Halloween. Like, a Halloween on a Sunday would suck, too. I don't think that's a great day for a holiday. Like Halloween on a, Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That's more for kids anyway. But, like the holidays you get off, like a 4th of July. 4th of July on a Sunday didn't sound very fun either. You get the Monday off, I guess, the next day. Don't they do that more times than not? You get the holiday off on either Monday or the Tuesday. I feel like Tuesday, Wednesday is probably the worst. But that's what we had for the new year. I know a lot of you hardworking folks are out there getting some extra work in during the holidays. For everybody else that maybe had the 2 weeks off, tomorrow's the first day back. Can't wait to see the traffic tomorrow. It's not too much in San Diego anyway. If you want to join the show today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's go out to New Jersey where Mitch is standing by. Mitch, what's going on? How was your holiday?
Oh, it was good. It was really good. I had a celebration with my mom. It was last weekend. And I'm glad to see a lot of people. She had a good life, 92 years. I was nervous. I wrote something up. It was kind of hard to dig up, 92 years. I'm 60. I'll be 63 at the end of the month. I'm a medium, in case you want to know. That was a joke. So I did everything. I wrote these things. I did pretty good. I just forgot to stand up.
So that's good.
At people because you can't just look down. That's rude. So and I'm not too great in doing any public speaking. That's a skill that I guess I never acquired. Being a FedEx driver, I'm glad I was never cooped up in office. I don't know how people do that, but that's just me. College ball, and NFL. College ball, USC has really had stuff picking up. I'm hearing more losses than gains. I'm hoping for Texas, and they got to have a short leash on Keenan Ewers because sometimes he doesn't look so good. I mean, he doesn't. His footwork. He'd just be a good backup. Last year, he could have gone on last year with a lottery pick. I don't wake up, but I could just imagine if Arch Manning comes to the rescue. That would be some story. And I don't like Ohio State, but I hate Penn State and Notre Dame the worst. I hate those. I shouldn't use that word, but I dislike those teams the worst. And I'm hoping I'll let you go with this. Thanks for taking my call. Chargers. I hope they really turn around, but what has happened to the days of Justin Herbert throwing 40 yards? This would be the year because Kansas City's 15-1, but they don't look the old Kansas City. He's just a great quarterback. But this year, if anybody can beat Kansas City, either Buffalo or the Chargers, might be something. And, of course, the NFC is just great. Detroit, Minnesota, I'm pulling for one of those two teams. They have also been quite a bit of bad luck in the Super Bowl. Detroit's never been to the Super Bowl. Anyway, talk to you later. Thanks again. Have a nice, safe week.
Mitch, I appreciate the phone call, my man. We'll talk to you again next week. I do got to get the finalized schedule of the Braden Surprenant Show for the month of January, just because we got NFL pregame stuff we got to do. Lot that Mitch talked about with college and the NFL. We'll start with college for a second. The playoff games were good, some of them. Some of them were not very good. But it's interesting to say, and we're going to talk about this in the next hour, what we learned from the college football playoff. I mean, the thing is everybody wants to have these knee-jerk reactions to try to flip the tournament into what benefits them the most. And right now the national media is trying to flip everything to try to make sure the SEC gets protected with everything. Like, well, this is, ridiculous that these why are these teams getting bought? Who cares? You have to win these games anyway. If you win your conference, go ahead. Give them a first-round bye. You should have an incentive for winning your conference. It's not the other school's fault that you decided to get up and leave for a bigger paycheck. Do you want to have a better chance of winning a national championship, or do you want a bigger check? That was the decision you made. So for these schools that it's BS, we're better than the teams that got a first-round bye. You know what? Tough S. You took $100 million. You want the $100 million? You want to win a national championship? I know they want their cake and they want to eat it too, but at the same time, it's like, how much more do we have to cater to two conferences? And one of them only has one team left, and that team was in the Big 12 last year. You got to let the thing play out for a couple of years before you start making drastic changes to it. And here's the other thing. They need approval from everybody that's on this board to flip this thing, and they got representatives from every conference. Those group of 5 schools, or group of 6, I don't know what you consider the Pac-12 at this point. But those conferences are going to be like, no, kick rocks. We're not changing this. Just to account for, the $15 million or whatever you get for advancing in the postseason. In terms of the National Football League, I know you talked about quarterback play. Quinn Ewers is okay. The quarterback play in college is okay. I've already seen the comments from scouts about Shedeur Sanders. They don't see him as a first-round draft pick. I wouldn't put my entire organization in the hands of Shedeur Sanders either. But there's not a lot of quarterbacks that are in this year's draft that are like guys that just want to just build my team around if I'm a bad organization. There's not. There's just not. Quarterback play is going downhill. It's not as good as it used to. You miss the best era of quarterbacks is over until you start fixing it. All these 7-on-7 camps, Elite 11, and guys throwing no pressure and all this and all day to throw. It's just that we're training the quarterbacks to not. They're the Tom Brady's and the Drew Brees and the Aaron Rodgers on his way out right now. Phillip Rivers. I mean, the quarterback play is just, it's not what it used to be. And I'm not saying every quarterback in the National Football League is not very good right now. It's just not as good. There's only a couple of those guys right now. It's like Mahomes, Allen, right? I think you could say maybe Joe Burrow and Justin Herbert. But even guys like C.J. Stroud, who was great last year, he's having a sophomore slump. He's okay. I mean, Russell Wilson's not very good. He's okay. Bo Nix isn't the second coming of Jesus. He's okay. I mean, these are teams that are playoff teams. And then you look at the teams that aren't in the playoffs and their quarterback play is not only is it not good, it is bad. It is flat out bad. Best team right now, the best 2 teams right now in the NFC are the Lions and the Vikings. Jared Goff and Sam Darnold. And both of them have played well. But both of those quarterbacks were like, the Rams shipped off Jared Goff. They were tired of him. Sam Darnold's been on 3 different teams, couldn't find any place to play. And you start looking at the Vikings, they've had success with their quarterbacks the last couple of quarterbacks. Because Kirk Cousins did pretty well in Minnesota. He's not doing as well in Atlanta. In fact, he got benched. Maybe it's a little bit more than that. Maybe it's more systems now. Jalen Hurts, he's okay. Not the greatest. He's okay. No, Matt Stafford, part of that old regime of quarterbacks. I would probably put him in that greatest era of quarterback play that we've seen, that we were leading up to, that we got. But you go through the list of the teams making the postseason right now. There's not a lot of like just, man, this quarterback is great. I mean, look at the Niners. I've said this about Brock Purdy for a long time. He's good. He's not like $50 million, $60 million a year good. He lost all his weapons. The team's 6-10. And when Christian McCaffrey doesn't play for that team, they don't win. And you saw it this year. You saw it last year, too, when he missed time. They don't win when he's not playing. If you're a $50 million, $60 million a year quarterback, you're a team that wins regardless of who's around some of these quarterbacks. And right now, a lot of these quarterbacks are good because they got a good cast around them. 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. We got to take a quick break. Kevin Chula Vista, stay on hold. We'll get to you when we come back. We'll try to get you some actives and inactives before we start Week 18 of the NFL. Got another hour coming up. After this, we'll talk some college football and more NFL in the second hour. If you got Padres questions, throw them in the chat. You could send me a voice message on the Odyssey app. Be sure to follow me on social media at @B_SURP. I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local, each and every Sunday morning from 9 to 11 in the year 2025 on San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each every Sunday morning from 9 to 11 now on 97.3 The Fan. New time for 2025. Thanks again for all of you for joining us this morning. Now in the first hour instead of the second hour of the show. Talking some NFL football, some college football with some of the phone callers who want to join the show. 833-288-0973. 833-288-0973. I do want to get some of your active and inactives real quick before we get to the phones again. Anybody that's still playing fantasy football, if you do the last week of the year, this is obviously a very important week for you, especially with actives and inactives around the National Football League. So without further ado, let's get to some active and inactives for Week 18, especially for teams that have already clinched playoff spots and don't have anything to play for. We'll start with Buffalo. Buffalo Bills' Amari Cooper is out with personal reasons. Isn't likely to play much in this meaningless game anyway, but Josh Allen will start to keep his streak alive with most of his team's regulars will only see a little bit of action. So Josh Allen expected to play. Amari Cooper is out for personal reasons. Curtis Samuel will be active for the Buffalo Bills. Rib injury. Given the rest plan for starters, Samuel could see significant action. In Carolina, Xavier Legette and Miles Sanders are both active for the Panthers. Christian Watson is active for the Packers. Indianapolis, Anthony Richardson is out with a back injury. It will not be Richardson under center for the Colts. It will be Joe Flacco, most likely, instead. Drake May, quarterback for New England, is active with a hand injury. Hunter Henry, his tight end, is inactive. So no Hunter Henry today for the New England Patriots. Jalen Polk, wide receiver for the Patriots, is out with a shoulder injury. If you're still playing fantasy football and you made it to the championship with Hunter Henry on your team, God bless you. New Orleans, Derek Carr out with a hand injury. Alvin Kamara is out with a groin injury. Kendre Miller, his backup, is out with a concussion. Jawan Johnson, tight end for New Orleans, is active with a knee injury, but Chris Olave, inactive, out with a head injury. He had been practicing, but for what really reason? Olave for New Orleans is out. Kendre Miller is out. Alvin Kamara is out. Derek Carr is out. Those are all the players out for New Orleans. If you have a New Orleans Saint, it better be a backup if you're still this far in fantasy football. Philadelphia. This is very significant. I mean, a lot of good players play for Philly. They don't need to play for anything today. Hurts is out still with a concussion, so no Jalen Hurts today. Kenny Pickett is active as the quarterback for Philadelphia. He's not likely to play given the need to stay healthy in case he's needed during the postseason. Tanner McKee will start for Philadelphia today. Pickett is active. He won't play. Jalen Hurts is out with a concussion. Saquon Barkley, inactive. Philadelphia did not put him on the active sheet today. Saquon, inactive. If you don't play in a meaningless Week 18, you can't get hurt. No Saquon today for Philadelphia. Will Shipley, running back backup, one of the backups for Philadelphia, he's active with his concussion. Kenneth Gainwell will probably start, but Shipley is in line to see significant time if he can play. A.J. Brown, inactive. Devontae Smith, inactive. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley. All out. 3 of them inactive. Jahan Dotson should see increased targets today for Philadelphia. If you have any of those players in your fantasy league, they ain't playing. Cade Otton, inactive, tight end for Tampa Bay. Peyton Durham found the end zone last week when Otton sat. If you need a tight end at that spot. Sterling Shepard is back for Tampa Bay. He's active with a hamstring. No reason to look beyond Jalen McMillan and Mike Evans for receiver options in Tampa Bay, but Shepard will play. He is active. Tennessee's kicker, Nick Folk, out with an abdomen injury. Matthew Wright will once again showcase his leg. Tony Pollard is active with his ankle. Tajay Spears is out with a concussion, so expect a lot more Pollard today. If not, Julius Chestnut may still see a lot of touches for Tennessee. That's a look at some of the first set of games in the active and inactive list. We'll talk about the active and inactives for the 1 o'clock in the next hour since we have a little bit more time with that, but I didn't want to get those across. And Austin Eckler for Washington is active. He has been activated from the IR in order to get some reps in prior to next week's playoff tilt. So Austin Eckler is back for Washington. That's a look at the active and inactive list for anybody that's still playing fantasy football this late in the year. If your league does a full 18 weeks, you are covered. I want to get back to the phones, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Let's head on down to the South Bay. Kevin in Chula Vista wants to weigh in. Kevin, what's going on? How's your Sunday?
Well, good morning to you, Braden, and thanks for taking the call. And Happy New Year to you and yours and the family and everybody over at the station.
Happy New Year to you as well, Kevin. We appreciate the phone call.
Concur that holidays in the middle of the week, man, I'm still lost. I have to look at my cell phone every hour just to see which day, time of the week it is. It's you have this fog that comes in and you just lose track of time sometimes. So I suffer with you. So having said that, a couple of things. First of all, going back to the Holiday Bowl, announced attendance was 23.9. I've got a good friend of mine that's one of the Redcoats. He swears the turnstile count was probably between 16 and 17. Have you heard a turnstile count for the holiday?
I have not heard a turnstile count. I've heard the sold tickets counts, which I knew a lot of. I mean, I knew a lot of tickets that were sold were people that didn't go. But yes, I mean that was a tough sell for a lot of people for that game.
Well, it's the last few years, of course, for various reasons, it has been declining in attendance. I mean, from the glory days, obviously when it was over at Jack Murphy Qualcomm, down to now, I suspect that Mark Neville and the crew have got to be having a little bit worry coming across their brows at this point because lately it's been headed in the wrong direction. We all know what the reasons are. There's no sense to belabor that, but just strictly from an attraction standpoint, I don't think anyone can argue it's not the same for all the various reasons that are out there. So putting that aside, back over to the Padres, one of the things that I think leaves fans scratching their heads is they look at this organization, they sell out every game, and then you wonder why, with all of the so-called ticket revenue that you get from sold-out teams, why you can't do better in your financials. And so I think that to proclaim one way or another where this team is going to finish at this point or what they're going to compete for, who the heck knows? This roster is so incomplete right now, Braden. The question, one of the big questions I think is being looked over, and I don't think intentionally, it's just because we don't think of it that much. Fernando's got to play a whole season yet, and he hasn't. So what that means for the Padres is you're going to have, as Coach Quintero used to say, you've got to have bench guys. And right now we don't even know who they are. So when you look at the multiple holes and the challenges, and you've got certainly their poker table with AJ, God bless him for what he did last year, but your poker chips now have appreciably declined in terms of what you can play to fill some very serious needs on this team. And that's what concerns me at this point. I think it's a bit presumptuous and even unfair to expect AJ to hit lightning in a bottle 2 years in a row, given the constraints that are around him. So I put the Padres at this point as not playoff contenders yet. And I wouldn't play the other side either. I would just give them a giant incomplete. And I don't think we're going to know much until we get closer to spring training and maybe even beyond, like it was last year, before we finally know where this team is going to land, which is a bit unsettling at this point.
Well, I mean, you're not going to know exactly what they're going to do or what they're going to finish until you see the complete team at the same time. But if you look at the roster from top to bottom, they have enough stars on the team where they're going to be competitive. I mean, they're just naturally going to be competitive. Now, if you want to factor in, like, you don't know about injuries and everything like that, yeah, with the lack of depth, this thing can spiral south very quickly if Fernando cannot play an entire season, and if Jackson Merrill has a sophomore slump, and if Manny, regresses or anything like that. So from that perspective, yes, I do agree. I compare it to all the other teams, though. I mean, the Dodgers the rich got richer, but nobody else really in the National League got significantly better that wasn't already a playoff team. It's not like there's a lot of other teams out there that have just put together just a banner offseason where you're running out of spots. I mean, just by default, with how many teams make the postseason, with the money that the Padres have already spent, they're going to be right there in contention unless something catastrophically bad happens, or they decide to ship off a lot of money elsewhere and try to get some more prospects back. But, from that perspective of like I that's why I said at the beginning of the show, I see both sides of this thing. I can see why you could be positive about it. I mean, you do have all-stars on this team, which is different than a lot of other years where you go into a Padres season and there's nobody like that on the team, and I don't know what we're going to get. But from the perspective of like knowing if they can compete for a National League pennant, all that stuff, yeah, you're right. There is no depth. They don't have any depth right now. They don't have a bench currently. They still have some major roster holes, but so does everybody else that they are currently competing with for a playoff spot. Now, that being said, interesting part, with this Padres team, and the way that the roster is constructed and everything like that, and what they do, but you brought it up, and it's totally true. And it really is totally unfair to the general manager and the president of baseball and A.J. Preller. I mean, how many years has he missed on a lot of these guys? I mean, last year they got lucky with Peralta and with Solano. I mean, before that it was like Nelson Cruz, and it was Matt Carpenter, and it was Rougned Odor, and it was Robinson Cano, and it was like there's a list of guys where it didn't work out at all. And you're $1 million in the drink. I mean, Profar for $1 million and Nelson Cruz for $1 million were two totally different outcomes.
Well, and don't forget, we're paying off, as I understand it, correct me if I'm wrong, there's $13 million left to pay Eric Hosmer off on his contract, correct?
He's got $12 million left. We got one more year paying him $12 million.
Good point. And so when you look at, AJ's cumulative record, I'm not going to begin to defend that other than he did a hell of a job last year. And as I said, again, but not to belabor the point, but I think it's true. I think it's expecting an awful lot to fill the positions that need to be filled here, and which are numerous, and get lucky 2 years in a row, given how it's just difficult. I mean, you just don't know what players are going to do from year to year, aside from what's on the back of the baseball card. So I make no assumptions yet until I see what the complete off season is going to bring, which at this point we just don't know, because there's so many different moving parts yet to come, Sasaki being one of them. And I think that will give an indication of, if they get them, that'll give them some flexibility of what to do with Cease, for example. So to say that they've got a playoff roster, we don't know, because there's three guys on there that are trading pieces that they may need to unload based upon what's going to happen in the next several weeks here. So I can't say one way or another, where they're going to land, whether they're going to be a playoff team or not. What concerns me is we sell out Petco Park. We've sold it out, I think, 2 years in a row now, pretty much, give or take a couple of games here or there. There's a revenue problem here. And we know that the TV deal blew a gigantic hole into that. That tells me that this is not a deep pockets ownership. When you look at 45% of the team is owned by the O'Malleys and the Seidlers, but then you've got a 55% ownership share that we don't know who the heck is out there that also has interest in this and is expected to be paid on the return on the investment. So there's a lot of different questions out there in the overhead operations and expenses that are affecting this team's operations that obviously they're not going to tell us. But as fans, all you can do is scratch your head and say, wow, we sell this place out and we're now turning ourselves into a mid-level ownership or expenditure team. It's a little bit concerning.
Yeah, it's a tough draw for the Padres organization for what they are currently in a financial mess of. Kevin, I appreciate the phone calls. Always. We'll talk to you next time.
Great. Looking forward to hearing more of you, Bray. Good luck to you.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Good 2025 to all of y'all. They're at an interesting spot for a lot of reasons that Kevin said, and the way that Major League Baseball is set up. I mean, the National Football League, they have a national television contract that they split. In Major League Baseball, everybody gets their own. It's like in college football. You know, Notre Dame doesn't join a conference not because they don't want to be in a conference, because they got to deal with NBC. They get paid. They don't have to share money. They just get it all for themselves. And when you have a TV contract like NBC, and it's just for you, and you don't have to split it with anybody, and you could go out and do what you do and then make the postseason, and then collect all the money in the post. They don't have to split that with the ACC either. I don't know. I forget how much money the contract is for Notre Dame, but they get a significant amount of money from NBC. Then again, they don't have to split with other members of their conference. And then when they collect checks in football for going to the playoffs, they get every dime. That's another $14 million in their pocket after beating Georgia to advance to the semifinals. It's the same thing in Major League Baseball. These organizations don't want to give that up. If I'm the Dodgers, making more money than everybody else. I'm the reason why people watch Major League Baseball. We'll talk more about that when we come back. 833-288-0973. 833-288-0973. Braden Surprenant Show for another hour. San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Final hour of the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each every Sunday morning. Probably used to our 8 to 10 show. We are now on from 9 to 11 on Sunday mornings. Thanks again for making our day a part of yours. Whether you're going around to church on a Sunday or if you're going to some youth sporting events, we're starting to really dive into the new year. Here's it seems like the official start to the new work year tomorrow, as we got everybody's probably going to be back at work. I think a lot of people mixed in the work last week. It's tough. The holidays in the middle of the week are the worst. The absolute worst. Where you got a holiday on like a Tuesday, Wednesday is insane. So it's just it's tough. It's a tough draw for a lot of people. You don't know when you don't know when you're going to be able to mix in some days off. You don't know if you get the whole week off. Do I work this day? Do I not work this day? It's kind of a crazy thing. I also think like having them on like the Sunday also stinks. Sundays also stink when it comes to that for the holidays. But anyway, I want to join the show today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. I find this funny. I think this might just be a San Diego thing. I'm going to use the chat as an example. I'm going to pick on the YouTube chat in a second here. And the YouTube chat, it cracks me up like on YouTube. In every show. I mean, it's literally every one of our shows. Across the board. It's so funny to me. And San Diego is such a unique place. But it's like the asks we get. Again, you can watch all of our shows are on YouTube here at 97 Through the Fan. So we're live on YouTube right now. So if you're driving around and you want to still stay tuned in, you can watch us on YouTube. You can also download the Odyssey app. You can listen on the Odyssey app. You can send voice messages to the show on the Odyssey app as well. If you go on Odyssey, if you go on the Odyssey app and go to Listen Live, next to Listen Live, there'll be a voice memo, and you can leave a voice message that we can play on air on the show. If you want to weigh in on the show, you can also call in 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. You can also follow me on social media. Follow the show at B_SURP. That's on Instagram, X. Can't believe I called it X. Instagram, Twitter /X. And I don't really do too much on TikTok, but I am on TikTok. Maybe I should do some more things on TikTok. You can follow me there as well. All by the same handle. Here's the thing that cracks me up about San Diego. It's the whole, and I've been here my entire life. For a split time, I spent some time, like when I was in college, I went to U of A for a semester. Wasn't my thing. You know, TCU was always the school I wanted to go to. I went to TCU for college. So for 4 years of my life, I didn't live in San Diego, but I was here almost 26 other years of my life. My family's been here for generations. I'm a fourth generation San Diego. It's very, very rare that you find families that have been here for that long. And there are some families that have been here for even like way longer than that. But the thing that I always find incredibly funny is what people say they care about when it comes to sports in San Diego. Well, just in general. And there's arguments about it all the time. About what we as San Diegans care about when it comes to sports. And what are we going to talk about? I had a friend the other day. She was like, what do you guys talk about during the offseason? And I was like, well, it honestly just depends on the show. I mean, I like football. And I coach football, and I know there's a lot of people in San Diego that still like football. And so on my show, I like to talk football on Sundays. I think it's good. I think a lot of people play fantasy football. I think people like the NFL. I think people like college football. I think it's a very unique market here. But I said, we're still the Padres flagship station, so we obviously are going to talk about any type of Padres offseason moves. And that's what she was asking about. It was like, they haven't really done anything. What do you do for 4 hours? I'm like, find different storylines and topics to make Padres baseball interesting during the offseason. It's hard to do. They don't have an NBA team. It's been a long time since San Diego had an NBA team. I didn't grow up with an NBA team, so we don't really talk about the NBA too much. There are people in town that like the Lakers. There are a lot of people in town that like the Clippers because Kawhi plays for the Clippers. But I love the arguments that always happen in the chat. You have your loyal listeners that listen for one thing. And they all tune into the same show to listen to just one subject. And we have our fans in the chat here on YouTube that are just diehard Padre fans. And they want to hear Padres baseball all the time. And that's great. They want to talk about Padres baseball all the time. It's awesome. And as a radio talk show host, you want to talk about the things that people want to listen to. I mean, that's what it is. Everybody always says that. Everybody always says that. But I remember growing up, that wasn't always the case. I don't even think it's always the case right now. What do you guys talk about on the show? We talk about what the listener wants to listen to. Is that really the truth? Or do we talk about what is easier for us to talk about? I try to talk about what everybody wants to, what people want to listen to. And right now, it's a lot of Padres. I mean, still, I would rather, if it was up to me, right, if I did my own show, which I'm doing, but if I did my own show that wasn't in San Diego, I'd be talking a lot of college football. I would talk college football all the time. In fact, in the entire fall months, I wouldn't even talk about baseball one time because it's the off season. And unless something happens, there's nothing really going on with Major League Baseball. But being in San Diego, that's our main team. We got to talk about the Padres. That's what people are interested in. It's the professional sports team here in town. I like talking about the Aztecs. They had a big win yesterday in college basketball. But it's based on like some of the support that we get. I mean, we don't get a lot of Aztec calls. I'd love to talk about the Aztecs football program. I try to do it on Sundays when I can. There's nothing really to talk about right now, but there's not a lot of people that have been able to put that together. I mean, I could try to make anything sound interesting to you, and that's why I try to kind of throw in some of the college teams. We'll talk about the Aztecs, talk about Aztec football, talk about Aztec basketball, talk about the other local colleges. We got two really good D1 basketball teams right now in town, UCSD and San Diego State. I mean, UCSD is going to play Irvine next Saturday for the top spot in the Big West Conference. The top spot in the Big West. That's going to be at Lion Tree Arena on Saturday night. San Diego State just knocked off Boise State on the road. Had a tough loss to Utah State. But those are two really good college basketball teams that we have in town. USD's got a lot of great athletic teams as well. Basketball is kind of down, but they've been good in other things. But it's just funny to me what people demand that we talk about and demand that we say without even listening to any other subjects. I mean, I talked about the NFL and college football already a little bit. I already got somebody saying it's not Padres season, why we talk about the Padres. Meanwhile, I got other people arguing with them saying that they only want to listen to Padres. I got 15 people talking about, let's talk SDFC. What do you want me to talk about with them? They barely have a roster right now. I mean, until they start playing games, I don't know what you want me to say about them. It's great. I love that we have another professional team in town. It's going to be awesome. But until they start playing, it's just like, what are we going to talk about? Most people in the United States don't have any idea what's going on with soccer, especially MLS. Most people that are soccer fans in the United States are watching European soccer. They are. I mean, a lot of young people like watching soccer. They're never watching the MLS. Until you can convince them to watch the MLS, until you start bringing in the best talent, people are going to watch the best leagues. I mean, look at all the best leagues right now in the world. They all reside here in the United States except for soccer. Why is that? Well, soccer in Europe pays more money for their players. It's not a hard concept to figure out. If Major League Soccer wanted to be the best soccer league in the world, they outspend all the other soccer leagues on the players. But they don't have the money for that because they don't have the support for that from the United States. Otherwise, they would. NBA's got the support from the United States. Major League Baseball's got the support for the United States. The NFL's got the support for the United States. College athletics has the support for the United States. The NHL is kind of hockey or the NHL is kind of Canada and the United States. All the best leagues are here. Why? They pay for the best players. If any European basketball league, if any of those leagues wanted to spend more money on players and take the best over to Europe, the players would follow the money. You just saw it with golf. Another league showed up and paid more money than the PGA and gave guaranteed contracts, and everybody went, not everybody, but a lot of players went to the league that paid them more money. If one of these spring leagues had the money and the funding that the NFL has, which they don't, and they decided to offer Patrick Mahomes double what he makes in the NFL, he might take it. And if it's not him, they could start grabbing some of the upper echelon players or high-tier players and start moving to a different league. If the Nippon League in Japan had more money than Major League Baseball and could offer more money to play over there, and they could start grabbing players over there, they would start having the number one league for baseball in the world. But the United States is in a position where sports is very much entertainment. And people in the United States pay a lot of money for entertainment. And people in the United States have the resources to spend a lot of their income on entertainment. So when it comes to the MLS, until they start, they did it with Messi and bringing him over. I mean, they've tried before with older players, but until they start spending a ton of money to bring over those players, I mean, you could say what it is, but a lot of people that like soccer in the United States don't watch the MLS. I'm interested to see it. I can't wait. They gave me a jersey. I'm fired up. Watch the MLS, see what we got. But you got to compete with a lot of stuff here in San Diego. It's hard for everybody to compete here. It is. It's just a difficult task to get people to watch sports in town. But the thing, there's certain sports that are better for talk radio than others. What do you talk about when it comes to the goals? I like the goals. I'm a fan of the Anaheim Ducks. But what do you who's breaking down the X's and O's of the AHL? Right? Who's doing that? There's diehards, right? So everybody in the chat, I think, is finding it funny. They're focused on the one thing that they like. And then everybody else is nobody cares about that. I can make the argument that nobody cares about anything. I can literally make the argument that nobody cares about any sports team in town. But there's no point in doing that. There are people that love college. My friends love college football. They all grew up here in San Diego. They all love college football. They all have college football teams. It's the same thing. It's literally the same thing I was talking about the MLS. There's a lot of people in town that love college football. Just like there's a lot of people in town that love soccer. And what leagues do they watch? They watch the best leagues in the world. So my friends that are college football fans, they don't watch San Diego State. They didn't go there. They have no affiliation with San Diego State, even though they live here and they were, born here. And I'll root for San Diego State and USD and UCSD because I'm from San Diego, and it's great when the local colleges do well. But as a alumni of TCU and them playing in a power conference, I'm more engaged to what they are doing at the higher level. My friend's a Penn State fan. He is in on the highest level of college football. It's just a different level down here. It's the same thing that we're talking about with soccer. All of my brother's friends like soccer. And sometimes on Saturdays we go out and we do, we do this Frisbee thing at the gym, whatever. And then after we go to Starbucks and hang out, and they got European soccer on. They're not watching the MLS. They're watching European soccer. It's the highest level of soccer. So when you talk about a lot of these sports teams and towns, unless it's at the highest level, there's not a lot of people that are going to just like really, dive into it. We don't have an NBA team here. It's hard to talk about the NBA. At least we have like college sports here, right? So we can talk about college sports. The NFL is king everywhere. I mean, people play fantasy football. You can talk about the NFL. The NBA is hard to talk about in a town that doesn't have it. We talk about the college games yesterday. I mean, the college basketball games, aside from the ones that impact the local teams, it's, it is what it is. And until San Diego State gets up the leaderboard and you start talking about the NCAA tournament, there's no reason to really talk about some of the national teams. It's a very interesting deal, the sports talk radio world, especially in San Diego. I mean, I tell people all the time it's the most unique market ever, where we treat the Major League Baseball team like it is an NFL team, which is cool. I mean, it makes it a lot more entertaining for the offseason, I can tell you that. We're one of the only stations that isn't a diehard NFL throughout the entire calendar year. I mean, we talk about the big major events, but that's about it. It's not like that in a lot of other places. In college football, kind of the same thing. It's very interesting. But when we come back, we'll talk some college football for you. I will throw that in. I do want to, there's a lot of things to react to the college football playoff. And while you can't make too many drastic decisions on what transpired in the college football playoff, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about how it impacts San Diego State as we continue on the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning from 9 to 11, San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Welcome back to the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning. We're on now from 9 to 11 on San Diego's #1 sports station. New time slot. We got Let's Talk Hookup now back on the radio airwaves here on 97.3 The Fan. And on those airwaves, they will be on from 7 to 8 on Saturdays and 7 to 9 on Sundays, and then we will take over on Sundays after Let's Talk Hookup. So good to be back with all of you here in the new year. I want to talk some college football with you at the college football playoff, what we learned from the college football playoff. But I do want to update you on some scores throughout the National Football League as we are fully into the morning slate throughout the NFL. We'll get you a quick NFL update. In Arlington, Texas, Dallas Cowboys have a 3-0 lead on the Washington Commanders with 5 minutes to go in the first quarter. It was a 34-yard field goal by Brandon Aubrey that capped off an 8-play, 76-yard, 4-minute and 28-second drive for the Cowboys in the game. They have gotten the ball back. They have 1st and 15 at their own 5-yard line. Again, under 5 minutes to go at Jerry's World. As for the Falcons and Panthers, this is a significant game for the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons need a win. Tampa needs to lose later on to New Orleans, who has nobody playing. I mean, nobody playing, in order for Atlanta to make the postseason. That game currently between Atlanta and Carolina is tied at 3. Riley Patterson at a 31-yard field goal, 11 minutes, or at the 11-minute mark in the first quarter. 12-play, 58-yard drive, 3:52 off the clock. Gave Patterson a 31-yard field goal to make it 3-0 Atlanta. Carolina tied it up with an Eddie Pinheiro 35-yard field goal to cap off an 8-play, 52-yard drive. Bryce Young currently 3 for 4 for 30 yards passing. Michael Penix Jr. is 3 for 8 for 42 on the ground. Sanders 2 carries, 3 yards. Bijan Robinson 4 carries, now 5 carries, 21 yards. Adam Thielen, the leading receiver right now for Carolina. It's 3-3, 5:28 to go in the first. Bears and Packers. Bears just scored a touchdown against Green Bay on the road at Lambeau Field. It was a Josh Blackwell 94-yard punt return for a touchdown against Green Bay to give the Bears a 7-0 lead, 6:29 to go in the first quarter, as they were able to get some special teams on the board for Chicago. Chicago 4-12 on the year, trying to get their first road win of the season. They're 0-7 on the road. Packers still playing for seeding in the NFC as they sit at 11-5. Other scores for you in the NFL. Texans take a 7-0 lead on Tennessee. The Houston Texans scored on a Nico Collins 2-yard pass from C.J. Stroud. It was set up by a run by Joe Mixon. He was tackled at the 1-yard line, and then they were able to punch it in a couple plays later. The Nico Collins 2-yard pass from C.J. Stroud to give the Texans a 7-0 lead on Tennessee. They just punted the ball. Tennessee will start their next drive 1st and 10 at their own 25-yard line. Other games for you. Jags and Colts tied at 7 in the first quarter. Jaguars have it now 4th and 1 at their own 18 and looking to punt as they just punted it away to Indianapolis. Indianapolis scored their touchdown, an Alec Pierce 40-yard pass from Joe Flacco. Matt Gay's kick was good. Tank Bigsby got a 1-yard rush for Jacksonville to cap off a 10-play, 70-yard drive to tie the game up at 7 apiece, 7-7 between Jacksonville and Indianapolis. Patriots have a 7-0 lead on the Buffalo Bills here in New England. It was a Joe Milton 1-yard rush, quarterback keeper for New England. 13-play, 55-yard drive for the Patriots to take a 7-0 lead on Buffalo. 2:45 to go in the first. Eagles strike first against the Giants. They're up 7-0 at Lincoln Financial Field. Eagles trying to improve to 14-3 on the year. Most of their players are out today or inactive. Saquon Barkley's not playing. A.J. Brown is not playing. Devontae Smith is not playing. Jalen Hurts is not playing. Pickett is not playing. He is active, but he's not playing. Nia Smith, 15-yard touchdown pass for the Eagles from Tanner McKee gets them on the board first. 7-0 Philadelphia. 4:03 to go in the first quarter. Other scores for you. Last score of the day: Bucks and Saints. Significant to the Atlanta Falcons. Bucks and Saints are tied at 3 with 3 minutes to go in the first quarter. Atlanta win and a Tampa loss puts Atlanta into the playoffs. Tampa Bay wins, they are in, they win the division in the NFC South. A couple of field goals exchanged in that game, and that's a look at some of the scores in the National Football League right now. When we come back, we'll get you the look at what we learned from the first couple of rounds of the college football playoff, plus more of your phone calls. You want to join the show today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. A lot of people in the chat want us to talk about certain things. If you want to do that, give me a call. Bring it up. We'll talk about it. Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each every Sunday morning from 9 to 11. San Diego's #1 sports station, 97.3 The Fan. Final segment of the Braden Surprenant Show, live and local each and every Sunday morning. New year, new time. 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. on Sundays now. As we get closer to the baseball season, we'll talk more and more Padres. We're in the midst of college football playoff and the NFL. We'll try to get you some more score updates in the National Football League as they come about. But if you want to join the show today, 833-288-0973, 833-288-0973. Talking a lot of you in the chat today. There's a lot of questions. Braden, did the Aztecs' loss to Utah State surprise you and being dropped from the polls? That was last week. I didn't get to watch the game because I was up at the Intuit Dome with USD. University of San Diego played Grand Canyon at the brand new Intuit Dome a couple of weeks ago. And in the new Intuit Dome, which, by the way, is really cool. It's a really cool arena. It's very much the basketball version of SoFi in a sense that it's hard to get around the arena. And, like, the ways to get in are super weird and, like, everything like that. Like, it's weird. Like, they have, there's not a lot of parking up in Inglewood. It's not like they have, like, these lots. They have these, like, garages, and there's one that's attached to the Intuit Dome that I was able to park in being with the team. And on the third level of the parking garage is where they had the security point to get into the Intuit Dome for anybody that parked in that garage. Otherwise, there was like other loops and hoops you had to jump through, and there was like a media entrance one and then whatever. And so it was it was interesting to see how they had everybody outside the compound, go through security, not just go through security inside the arena. So they have it outside the facility, if you will. It would be like, like anybody that parks at the Hilton for Padre games. You could walk across, there's a portion of like the Hilton parking garage that attaches to the bridge that goes across. It'd be like if they had the security for the Padres on that bridge to get into the baseball stadium. I guess they do that for the Omni. But anyway, you walk in there, and the cool thing is I walked around for a little bit. They had every high school basketball jersey of all the teams in California. So I spotted a lot of the San Diego high school basketball jerseys. I found cathedrals, which was cool. And the place gets loud. I mean, it's a nice environment. They did the wall on one of the sides. They call it the wall. It's like where all the passionate fans should sit, and you gotta like apply to be part of that and everything. But that's a note to San Diego State's The Show. When Steve Ballmer of the owner of the Clippers, went to the jersey retirement ceremony of Kawhi Leonard at San Diego State and saw the show and everything they did and how loud it got in there and how steep it was and everything like that. When he was building this arena, they made it look like he wanted a version of that, and it's pretty cool. And that place gets very loud. Before USD tipped off, Gonzaga played UCLA. Game went down to the wire. It felt like a Sweet 16 game in there. I've been to a handful of Sweet 16 games throughout the years. It felt like an NCAA tournament Sweet 16 game. The video board's insane. It looks like SoFi's. It's like that ring one that they got in a lot of different places now. But anyway, I was up there with them calling the game, and I look at my phone. The games were kind of at the same time. I think the Aztec game tipped off first. I looked at my phone during the USD game, got the update on the score that the Aztecs were just throttling Utah State. And then I checked the final after USD's game was over and they lost. I was like, they lost? How did they lose? It blew an 18-point lead and some of the same stuff. I wasn't surprised that Utah State's a good basketball team. I mean, UCSD went up there and gave them their only loss. So overly not surprised. I'm not surprised they're dropped from the polls either. It's a name thing. It's the same thing with college football. The polls are the polls. They're ridiculous. A lot of the time. And so with the polls that they have out there it doesn't really matter. You got to find a way in the NCAA tournament. Your first goal should be winning the Mountain West Conference. Then your second goal should be trying to win the Mountain West Conference tournament. Third goal, get into the tournament, NCAA tournament, and just go. So it's good that they had a good bounce back against Boise State yesterday. And the thing with the Boise State game, I mean, that's a place that San Diego State has not done very well in the past. Aztecs have not done very well at Boise State. They had some travel issues again. They didn't leave till they didn't get into Boise until midnight the night before, and you can only fly charter a certain amount of times in the Mountain West Conference, which I think is the dumbest rule I have ever heard. I mean, what other conference would allow that? What other conference with big teams or big schools would be like, you're going to limit how many times we could charter a flight so everybody is equal in travel right now? I mean, do you think Gonzaga would do that in the West Coast Conference? Absolutely not. They'd be like, no, we're going to fly the way we're going to fly. But San Diego State and the Mountain West only allows you to charter 4 flights, and everybody has to use it to Laramie, which counts as 2. You get 1 there and 1 back. And so they had the travel debacle trying to get up to San Jose the other day when they played Cal in that MTE, the multi-team event. Come back, lose to Utah State by 1 at home, which is a devastating loss. And they had the same thing, travel issues, trying to get to Boise, Idaho over the weekend because they can't charter the flights because they have to save them for a trip to Laramie. That's another problem with this play everybody home and home conference schedule for the Aztecs. Now they have to go to Laramie and Fort Collins and Colorado Springs and Albuquerque. I mean, and they get 4 charter flights. What a dumb rule. Well, not everybody can charter flight. Too bad. If your school has the resources to charter flights, you should be allowed to charter the flights. That's what all the other schools do. If they want to save money, they can save money. But to say it's not fair is ridiculous. I mean, trying to travel in the Mountain West Conference with the rules that they have. First of all, trying to travel the Mountain West Conference is hard enough as it is. These are not major cities that the Aztecs are traveling to. They're not major cities at all. Laramie, Wyoming, Colorado Springs, Albuquerque, Reno, San Jose. San Jose is probably the easiest place for them to get to. Logan, Utah. I mean, all of these places involve some type of driving for a significant amount of time once you land. With the exception of San Jose and probably Las Vegas. That's why I said, when people were complaining about, when they can't join the Big 12 because travel would be easier. Most of those schools are in big cities or right next to big cities. You don't have to fly to Denver and then drive to Laramie. Fly to Denver, drive an hour to Fort Collins. Fly to Denver, drive to Colorado Springs. But despite all the travel issues, good performance out of the Aztecs. I mean, going up to Boise getting a win is a pretty big deal. They'll have Air Force at home coming up in a couple of days this week. That'll be a 7:30 tip on Fox Sports 1, and then they'll go to the Pit on Saturday. We got some good games on Saturday night. UCSD hosts UC Irvine, top 2 teams in the Big West Conference, on Saturday night at Lion Tree Arena. San Diego State is playing on Big CBS against the New Mexico Lobos at the Pit on Saturday. They don't have a time yet for that game. And then USD plays St. Mary's at home. Those are 3 big games in college basketball here in San Diego, which is really cool when you see all these teams in college basketball being the thing that all 3 of these schools can be a part of. If USD can start picking up the pace a little bit and keeping pace with UCSD, which I think they're going to do with their new athletic director in Kimya Massey, I mean, you have an opportunity to have 3 really good programs here in America's finest city, which would be great for the city, I think. But good win for the Aztecs yesterday. UC San Diego won yesterday as well. They dominated yesterday in a big win, so good for Eric Olin and company. USD lost at Corvallis. They lost to Oregon State, and they've just been struggling. They're getting better, but they have been struggling. And again, it's part of that NIL deal and everything like that. So that's a little look at the college basketball. Let's talk about the college football playoff for a second. And I could talk about this for years, days on end. But when you look at the college football playoff and everybody's, people want to complain and bitch and moan about the first round buys. The first round buys all lost. I think a lot of people make the argument that like Arizona State and Boise State probably weren't the top, 3 and 4. They weren't really 3 and 4. So why are they getting the 3 and 4 seeds? Why are they getting the bye? See, this proves it because they lost. I don't think it really proves it because they lost. I think there's a lot of advantages and disadvantages to some of the seeds that they have created in this playoff in which they put together this format in order of keeping traditions while also putting in new components to college football. And like a lot of that, right, it's college athletics right now in general is in the midst of they're trying to be two different things at once, and they can't do it. They're trying to be professional sports, and they're also trying to be amateur sports at the exact same time, and it's not possible. For multiple reasons. And on multiple sides. We talked about the NIL side so much. From the player standpoint, they're trying to be amateurs and they're trying to be pros at the same time. It's not possible. With the transfer portal, you're trying to make everything competitive and make guys play in these games and make them earn these contracts and everything like that. But at the same time, you're worried about when they transfer that they're enrolled in school in time for the next semester. It doesn't make any sense. You're either a professional organization, you're either a professional league or you're an amateur league. You're not both. You can't be both. The players, same thing. You either are going and you can pick where you want to go and you're on scholarship, you go to school, or you get paid and there's rules about being a pro. You don't get both, even though currently they're doing that. From the standpoint of scheduling and making postseason and everything like that, they're still trying to be college athletics and professional athletics at the same time. And they can't do it. Trying to keep the traditions of the bowl games with the playoff. Making sure that all of these bowl locations are still getting the bowl games that they have because of the tourism during the fall and the wintertime and all of that. I get that. And I understand like what has been for so long. And it's like you want to keep a lot of these things the same. But a lot of these things need to change. I mean, you want to keep the tradition right of the Rose Bowl being played on New Year's Day at 2 o'clock. Every single New Year's Day. They want to be able to do that, but also make sure everybody's got enough rest time by also be adding more playoff games while also having this one. It's becoming almost impossible to be able to do that. But the other thing too, again, like in the NFL, and it's different in the NFL, there's only 32 teams, but in the National Football League, you win, you clinch, you're in. All professional sports are like that. In college sports, there's like committees and like there's resumes and there's BS analytics on certain things and there's measuring sticks for how good a team is. There's the FIP, the FBI. There's all these things. Because there's so many teams, you're like, how do you determine who gets to make it? There's no automatic qualifiers aside from the conference championship week, which makes no sense. So you can't clinch until the last week of the year anyway. And you got these buys mixed in. You have these, first round home games. I mean, to me, it's almost better to be a 5, 6, 7, or 8 seed than it is to be a 1, 2, 3, or a 4. The 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the seedings get the advantage of having like 2 weeks off, 3 weeks off. I mean, look at the scheduling. The scheduling for this thing is outrageous. First round happened pretty quick, which is good. You want to see that. Let's get these games going. But then the second round didn't happen until New Year's. So not only are they getting a bye, you're getting an extra 10 days after. I mean, you got like 2.5, 3 weeks off before you play your next game. That's great for like a couple of injuries. But when you're trying to keep players focused for multiple weeks without an opponent, at least 10 days without an opponent, and then in another 10 days with an opponent, that is almost an impossible task. And teams, especially in football that have a bye, you either come out like guns blazing if you get like a certain amount of days, or you get rusty in a hurry. So you look at the schedule of the college football playoff and where it started and where it finishes. And like Notre Dame played their game on December 20th against Indiana. Friday, December 20th. They went on to play Georgia. Georgia didn't play till January 2nd, which means Georgia hadn't played a game since their conference championship game, which was on December 7th. They almost had a month off. Oregon had 24 days off. 24 days off. That is a ridiculous amount of time, and it's not like it's all just bull. It's not an advantage to have that many days off. You should have like a week off, if that. I mean, they got to get this thing going, but they don't want to play during this time. They want to make sure the bowl games get. I mean, they're trying to make too many people happy instead of just doing what they need to do as a pro sports league. Enough with the people picking. I mean, everybody that's upset about the way things played out with the games and how it's like, oh look, the seedings are off, and I mean, everybody complaining about the SEC getting more teams in. Where are they at right now? The only team that got in, or the only team that's left that's an SEC school is Texas. They're a Big 12 school in their first year in the SEC. Things got exposed. People want to puff their chest out about the Big Ten now because they got 2 teams left. You got 2 Big Ten teams. You got an independent and you got a SEC school left. There's no bearing on the regular season. You got to let you just got to let it play out for a couple of years. It's without knee-jerk reactions, everything. I still think they're eventually going to get to a 16 or 24 team playoff. I don't know why they don't just do that now and play and everybody's going to play 17 games. Well, everybody else has to play 17 games too. In the NFL, you play 17 games. In the FCS, you play 16 games because they only think they play 11 games in their schedule. And then if you want to win a championship, you play 16 total. Montana State's doing it. You go to lower levels of division of college football, they're playing 15, 16 games. You go to high school, you want to win a state championship with the state of California. In high school football, you got to win 16 or 17 games, depending on what bracket or section you're in. So if the high schoolers can do it and the lower level colleges can do it and the pros can do it, why can't D1 do it? I mean, you're paying these guys now. Go out there and play the games. I mean, there's so many rules that need to be in place. There's so many, jurisdictions need to be dealt and the transfer rules. I mean, that helps save a lot of these like bowl games too. I mean, watching Syracuse play Washington State would have been a good game on paper, and then Washington State lost half their team in the transfer portal. I don't think you can take too much away from this college football playoff. I think the way you look at it right now and the way teams have played, Ohio State's the best team in the country right now. They have played the best. I didn't think they were going in the tournament, but they have played the best. They annihilated Tennessee. They dismantled Oregon, a team that they had already played in the year. I mean, they dismantled Oregon. Oregon had 24 days off. Ohio State looked like they rolled a team 10 days before, and that's exactly what they did. And they're hot right now. They look all around the best team in the country. Penn State's look good. They haven't looked great. They've looked good. They played SMU, who is a circus on offense, having to go on the road. I think that's going to be an almost impossible task in future college football playoff games, playing on the road in cold temperatures and rowdy. That's already almost impossible to do as it is. I don't think people really understand that because most of these big schools never have to go on the road more than 4 times a year anyway. That is going to be almost an impossible task to win those games on the road. And a lot of these big schools don't play other big schools like them in non-conference. And if they do, it's never on the road. Curious if they're going to start doing that now to be ready for playoff games. I doubt it because these guys run away from games all the time. But again, to go back to Penn State, they look good. They haven't looked great. Their offenses look good. They've done enough. I think they have made some poor decisions to potentially let teams back into games. I mean, Boise State made it out of the red zone like 3 or 4 times and ended up with nothing. 2 missed field goals and a turnover. It's a different story. I thought Arizona State deserved to win the game against Texas. I thought the targeting was ridiculous. The non-targeting call. I mean, what are we doing with this rule? I think targeting is the dumbest rule in college football in general with the punishment that's involved with it. I think they've eliminated the big hits they need to eliminate, but if you're not going to call that targeting, why do you even have the rule? Defenseless receiver, head or neck area, guy was knocked out. What else do you need? I think Ohio State handles Texas. Notre Dame looks pretty good. I think Notre Dame might edge out Penn State. You might see Ohio State, Notre Dame, college football playoff national championship coming up. That'll do it for me. First show of 2025. We got a new time from 9 to 11 now, the Braden Surprenant Show. Thanks again for tuning in. Catch the podcast wherever you get your podcasts at. We'll see you guys next week. 97.3 The Fan.